When it comes to television game shows, there are just a few that have been around for a very long time. A couple of those are Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy! These shows have really become a part of American culture, but there's another one that's been on the air even longer than those two because it's currently the longest running game show in American TV history. That show is The Price is Right. Chances are you've probably watched it at some point. Just about everyone has. But there are a few things you may not know about this show. The Price is Right has been seen on all three major networks, NBC, ABC, and CBS. Yeah, that's a bit of trivia from back when there were pretty much 3 channels on television to choose from. One of the hosts for many years was Bob Barker. And for a long time, his hair was dyed black. But he didn't like the way it looked. At one point, when he was on vacation, he stopped dyeing his hair and let it go full gray. The producers of the show were worried about how viewers would respond. But it turns out, people loved Bob's new look, and ratings went through the roof. A couple of well-known celebrities were contestants on The Price is Right before they became famous. Aaron Paul was once a contestant. He played Jesse Pinkman on the really popular series Breaking Bad. He got all the way to the showcase, but ended up overbidding, so he didn't win. The other one was Vanna White. Long before she became the famous and highly paid letter turner on Wheel of Fortune, she was just another person on contestant row trying to win something. But she actually never even made it up on stage. If you're a regular listener of this podcast, you know that a lot of the stories we talk about are really intense, and the guest may have gone through a huge tragedy. So sometimes I like to talk to someone who's been through something that's still really unusual, but happy. So my guest today is Fabiana, and she was in the studio audience for The Price is Right, and her name was called to come on down, and she actually did make it on stage. But there's more to her story. Real people in unreal situations.
There is a man standing in front of me in my bedroom.
My friend has been shot.
I'm literally inside the river, and I'm inside my car.
He had told me multiple times that he was going to set himself on fire.
If you say my name or try to look at me, I'm gonna kill you.
And he was just sobbing. He said, Mom, tell me you're going to be okay.
And I jumped on the hood of the car, and I held on.
And I looked into the garage, and he was hanging from the rafters.
I had somebody standing on my neck.
He's better to me dead. I want him dead.
I'm Scott Johnson, and this is What Was That Like? Just before we get to Fabiana's crazy story, I wanted to let you know about a podcast that I recently discovered thanks to my friend Lauren. This show is called Profoundly Pointless. Usually I'll give a new show 1 episode, maybe 2, and if it's not really good, that's when I bail. But all it took for this one was the first part of 1 episode, and it became one of my subscribed shows. And the reason for that, in one word? Variety. And a great host who knows how to host. Okay, that's more than one word. But seriously, the guests on this show range from exorcists to erotic hypnotists to money launderers, you name it. There's a past episode that's next in my listening queue, and that's with a professional slap fighter. I mean, what other podcast is going to educate you about slap fighting? The host is Nick Vinzant, and he has this special gift that I wish all podcasters had. When I'm listening to him talking to someone and I'm thinking about a question that I would ask, that's usually the next question Nick asks. Obviously, it makes sense that Profoundly Pointless was nominated for an Ambie Award for Best Interview Podcast of 2022. So go check it out. In spite of the name, this podcast is anything but pointless. The goal of the show is the same each time, to learn something new. And I'm about to learn about slap fighting. And of course, Profoundly Pointless is available on all the podcast platforms. And now, here's my conversation with Fabiana. What's your second favorite game show?
Oh, goodness. I'm going to cheat a little bit because technically it's not a game show. It's, I think, a reality show. But The Amazing Race, I watched every episode during COVID. I believe there's 33 seasons now. And I would have really loved to be on that show.
That's a really popular show. I had no idea there were 33 seasons, though.
Yes, it goes way back and it's so exciting. It probably goes against everything that I am, traveling all over the place without planning, leaving my kids, but I love the idea of the obstacles and competition and, of course, winning the $1 million at the end.
Well, I asked what's your second favorite because I assume your first favorite game show is The Price is Right. Is that right?
It has to be. It just has to be.
How long have you been watching that show?
Well, I don't get much of a chance to watch it anymore. I am subscribed to it on Facebook, so I'll watch little clips here and there. But when I was younger, let's say 9, 10, and I was home alone with my siblings in the summer, we would watch it because there wasn't much else to do. And we knew that it would start exactly at 10 in the morning, and we would turn up the volume. We'd go upstairs, and as soon as the theme song would come on, we would start running down the stairs. I would trip on the stairs purposely. We would do all sorts of shenanigans, jump up and down and pretend we were contestants on the show. So that was my stepsister, Kathy, and I. That was kind of a routine of ours. And I just would love to make her laugh. So I would be the goofiest contestant of them all.
It seems like that's their goal on the show is to get people to be as goofy as possible. Anyway, people just go crazy.
I think so. And I have a theory for that, why we go crazy. We're standing in line for a really long time. So it's a full day event. So you're standing in line for hours. You've probably gotten very little sleep because you have to be there really early in the morning. You've bonded with all these people, over 300 people that are in the auditorium with you. So finally, when you get picked, it's a big deal.
So you're in Southern California. How far do you live from where the show is actually filmed?
I'm about 2.5 hours, and you're expected to be there at about around 5:30 in the morning. The earlier, the better, so that you can get a number. So you get a ticket beforehand, but that ticket doesn't really mean much. Once you show up, you get another number, and that will tell you whether you are in the first taping or the second taping. So you want to get there as early as possible.
And what was your job at the time? Did you have to plan for time off to do this?
I didn't. I was actually on summer vacation from Chico State. I was home visiting my family. And I had gone up to LA the day before to run some errands with my cousin John. We drove by the CVS studios and just thought, oh, goodness, let's stop by and get some tickets to The Price is Right. And we got tickets for the very next day.
Wow. Okay. So I thought you had planned this so far in advance. This was kind of an impulse thing.
This was a very last minute thing. We got home quite late that night. I want to say we got home at about 11, and then we had to take off at maybe 3 in the morning.
What instructions do they give you, or how do they determine who gets chosen to come down? Do you know? Is it just random?
It's not completely random, no. So you're going through a line once you get there. You're filling out paperwork. There's a whole lot of waiting going on. Finally, after hours, you come across the producer. Usually he's standing on a podium, and they've kind of chunked the audience members, the 300 plus audience members, into groups. So you are in a group of at least 50 people, 100 people deep. Everyone is silent. And the producer will read your name tag and he'll say, Fabiana, tell me about yourself. And you have about 10 seconds to really make an impression on this person. And that's when he decides. Now, I'm sure there are people that just have a beautiful personality that just get right on. But for me, I figured I really spent all day here. I had gotten in a fight with my cousin in line, and I thought, I'm not going to waste all this time that we've spent. I'm really going to make sure that I get on. So once he asked me, I started jumping up and down. I told him I love to dance and gave him a little sample of my dance moves. So as soon as I was done talking, you could hear everyone in line say, oh, she's going to get picked.
That's a good sign, I guess, right?
Right.
You said you were with your cousin John. Did he also want to get picked, or was he just there to watch?
He did.
Okay.
No, he also did want to get picked, but he didn't, and he is even more animated than I am. So,
just got lucky.
I did get lucky. I think it also helped that I was wearing my Chico State sweatshirt because I think they often go for college students.
Was that planned on your part?
Probably, yes.
This was back in mid-90s, and of course back then Bob Barker was the host. He was the host for a long time. Did you get to meet him ahead of time?
I didn't meet him ahead of time, no. So this was 1996, and I did get to meet him, but not before the show started.
All right, so just take us through. You're sitting in the audience, and what happens?
So I'm sitting in the audience and a person is called, they're excited, they run up, and there's a podium and there's room for, I believe, 5 people to be called.
It's 4.
It's 4, sorry.
Yeah, it's always 4, I think. I've never seen more than that.
Yes, it is 4.
Okay.
No, it's 4.
Okay.
The first person is called, and you're already losing fate. Like, if it's not your name, the second person's called, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And all of a sudden, third person, they hold up a huge sign and it has your name on it. And I think they completely slaughtered my name, but luckily they had it written down. So, Fabiana, come on down. I lost it. I had to drink lots of coffee, lots of soda, little sleep. Also, I think I felt a little bit of pressure to really be excited. So I jumped up and down, coming down. I never stopped jumping. I almost tripped coming down. I high-fived everyone. I was just elated, so relieved that they had called my name.
Wouldn't it have been amazing if you actually had tripped coming down the stairs, just like you played when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah, that would have been really embarrassing. I mean, it's already embarrassing enough. It took me a while to be able to watch this video and not cry of laughter because I don't stop jumping the entire show.
Obviously, I would say almost everybody has seen The Price is Right. Can you just explain what's the game for getting up on stage?
So what they do is they bring out an item. It could be anything, right? It could be a bicycle, suitcase, whatever it might be. And the 4 contestants have to bid on a price, and the one that's closest without going over gets to go up on stage. So in this case, they bring out an exercise bicycle, and I have to bid on it. I'm a college student. I have no clue of what an exercise bicycle might cost, so numbers are just coming to my head. No big deal. I'm not really thinking it through because there's nothing really for me to think through. I have never bought this before. So I just...
Yeah, and plus this was such an impulse thing. It's not like you had time to study past episodes and learn prices and all that, right?
There's none of that. And I've got to tell you that there are some serious Price is Right fans, and they know every detail about everything. So my apologies to them if I'm, I'm just a fan. For me, I'm a fan, but a fan with heart, right? I'm not memorizing everything else that goes along with it.
You're not the data nerd, right?
No, absolutely not. I'm just enjoying it. They bring out this exercise bike and I get to bid, and I bid $11.50. And so once everyone is done bidding, Bob Barker starts saying, there's a bell that goes ding, 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 ding. You know what this beautiful sound means? This sounds that someone has bid the exact price. I knew it was me. I already knew it was me. You could see my face. I knew. So I was just waiting for him to say, I don't know, just It just was meant to be. So then he said, Fabiana, and back then you would win $100. So he gave me the $100 once I got up on stage, but then took it back because they write you out a check.
Oh,
later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't get to keep the $100 bill.
No.
That's all just for show. Okay.
That's right.
You know what was interesting about your initial bid, though? There's some strategy in this. And I saw that you bid $1,150, but someone else had bid $1,000, and then someone after you bid $1,151. And of course, you can only get it if you don't go over. So the only way you could have won is to be the exact price.
That's right.
And you pulled it off.
I'm not a big fan of the dollar over, to be honest. It's part of the game, but I don't love it.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's strategy. Everybody wants to win. But yeah, it kind of knocks somebody else immediately out of the running. Unless they get the exact right price like
right.
you did. Right.
Super lucky.
So you were exactly right. You got up on stage, and what were you playing to win in that game?
I was playing a game called Cover Up, and I was going to be winning a minivan Dodge Caravan. So there was already a price set, and you had to cover up that price because they were the wrong numbers. So for example, the 10,000s place, there were 3 options. And as you got to the last number, you had a lot more options of what digits you could pick, right? So he asked me, do you know how to play this? I didn't, but I was, whatever, I could figure it out. So I started hopping along and grabbing my numbers and just putting them in. And when he asked, did Fabiana get any numbers right? I had them all correct except for the second to last number, which was actually a bad thing because that meant I only had one chance to fix that price. I had put an 8 and I ended up switching it to a 7, but really it was a 1. So I lost the car.
So you didn't win the minivan. So the thing about whether you win or lose, they have 3 games, and then those 3 contestants halfway through the show spin the big wheel. And the idea with the wheel is you have to get as close to $1 without going over $1. So how did your spin go?
I spun the wheel, and I believe I spun 15 cents. I already knew I was not going to win with 15 cents, so I had to spin it again because you're able to spin it twice. The second spin was much better, and it was 70, so I had a great total of 85 cents. So no one was able to beat me without going over. So that ensured me going to the showcase.
So you were sure at that point that you were going to be one of the 2 people playing for the showcase prize.
And that's really, I think, the luckiest part of the show because there's really no control of the wheel.
It's so big. Was it hard to spin?
It is a little bit bulky to spin, but not super hard.
I wonder if anybody has any strategy about spinning that thing. Of course, without being able to practice ahead of time, you really would have no idea.
You would really need to be able to practice with the exact same weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So tell us about the showcase. You were up against a woman named Dorothy.
Oh, I was up against the sweetest, and I mean this in a very endearing way, sweetest old lady. She was just petite, white hair. I mean, she was the audience favorite. She had lost her game, but actually on the wheel, I think she had won up to $15,000 because she spun a perfect dollar, then it spun again. So she was, when you're in the showcase, you have the big winner or whoever won most and whoever won least. Obviously, I had won the least and she won the most. So they showed us the first showcase and it was like parkas, a car, a trip, and she decided to bid on that. And then for mine, it was a washer and dryer, a barbecue, and a sailboat. So I had to bid on that. Again, no clue.
I was going to ask you, you live on the California coast, but did you have any idea of the sailboat price?
No, absolutely not. No clue. Again, numbers were coming to me. I bid $14,016 because 16 is my favorite number. But I really, to be honest, I was just so happy, and you really can't hear the audience. Everyone's yelling and you really can't hear what they're saying. And I'm sure people talk about that guy that sat in the front that knew all the prices for everything. I wish I knew who he was then, but I didn't know. So this number just came to me and I just said it. And I think I just got, I got very lucky. Dorothy was off by about $4,000. And I was extremely close. I was off by $833. So the actual price was $14,849. Had I been within $200, I would have won both showcases. So that was actually a really great bid.
For somebody that had no idea how to price a boat, your cousin was in the audience. Does he know anything about boats? Was he trying to give you some numbers?
No idea. No idea. And then a regret I have, I was so just in amazement that I had won. I ran off without giving Dorothy a hug, or being appropriate and saying congratulations. But later on, on stage, she came up and gave me a hug. So I was happy about that.
Oh, that would have been a long time regret, right?
Yes. She was the sweetest. She really was. She was very feisty and sweet.
As the show is ending, you're all on the stage, and I should say, I know this because I've seen this video. We'll probably have a video of this on the website so people can watch this for this episode. But you're all on the stage next to the boat. It's you, your cousin, Bob Barker, and the girls. And after the music stops and the filming stops, what happens after that?
Yeah. And let me tell you, there's a few other people on the stage with me. Remember I told you that we're in line forever? You really become friends with the people in line. And we had said to one another, if one of us wins, you guys can come up. So you'll see a dad and a daughter that also came up with us. So what they do is they usher everyone that did not win out. Everybody's ushered out to leave. And anyone that has won anything at all, or even has been called up to the contestant row. And at that time you get shuttled into a small room. It almost looked like the bottom part of a stairwell. It was dark. There was this guy that was not very patient, I must say. And he, we all had a lot of questions. Obviously, do we have to keep it? How does everything work? And it was just one guy, and he's trying to do all of the paperwork.
And of course, he gets those same questions every single filming from the contestants.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So I was a little nervous, and I just thought, okay, I'm just going to keep everything, because some people were already saying, okay, well, I don't want this. And I just thought, okay, well, I'm just going to keep everything. I was quite shy at the time also. And he just seemed like he didn't have time for any of it. So that was it. We filled out paperwork. It does take a while. You're filling out your tax forms, and usually the biggest winner goes last. So you have to wait for everyone to get their paperwork filled out. So we got out of there quite late. And my cousin, of course, was waiting for me outside.
He deserves something for that, I guess, right?
He is amazing. So I have to say, it's probably because of him that I got on. I think there's certain people in life that you feel very comfortable with, that you could be your silliest, and he's my person. I could be so silly and not feel stupid around him at all. So he's a great wingman for the Price is Right.
Obviously, you don't take the boat home with you. What was the arrangement for getting the sailboat?
You don't get anything at that time. You have just your paperwork, and what they tell you is you have 3 months to hear from all of the vendors. So within 3 months, they contact you, and then they make arrangements. I think by the time the boat came, I was actually back at Chico State, and my amazing mom and stepdad put an ad on the paper, and they sold the boat to a lovely couple that ended up paying more than probably they needed to, because they knew that would help me pay for college.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah, it was very nice.
All right, I'll just say it right now. I don't always make the best choices when it comes to eating. It was easier when I was a kid, and my mom would remind me to eat my fruits and vegetables. Actually, back then, she would literally make it and set it in front of me. Yeah, those were the days. But today, as a supposedly wiser adult, how often do I eat the doctor-recommended 6 cups of fruit and 6 cups of vegetables each day? Yeah, I would say that's a goal that I literally never hit. And that's why I take Field of Greens. Field of Greens is powered with a full spectrum of essential vegetables and fruits, and it also includes herbs and prebiotics that are backed by actual science. These are things that I need to maintain my good health. And I have to say, it works fast. More energy, healthier skin, I just feel healthier. And it can help you lose weight too, if that's one of your goals. The best nutrition isn't complicated, it's simple. And that's exactly what Field of Greens is. I actually look forward to my annual checkup and blood work now, because guess what my doctor says? Yeah, Scott, just keep doing what you're doing. And it helps that it doesn't taste bad either. My favorite is wild berry, and the lemon lime is pretty good too. So join me in getting the nutrition you need from Field of Greens. Since you're a listener, I got you a special promo code to get 15% off your first order and 10% off when you subscribe. Just visit fieldofgreens.com and use the promo code WHAT. It's time to get those important fruits and veggies the easy way, like I do. That's fieldofgreens.com and use the promo code WHAT. And thanks to Field of Greens for sponsoring this episode.
The total prize that I won was worth $16,098. Keep in mind, I was a college student. I was working at the Chico State bookstore. I filled out paperwork. Well, I didn't. The Chico State accounting group did for me. We sent in $500 or so, and then the money was mailed back to me. I didn't owe any money, so that was really lovely.
The benefits of being a broke college student in a low tax bracket.
Ah,
Right?
The joys, for sure. Yes.
You must have been kind of a sort of a celebrity in your family. How much later did people have to wait before they actually saw that episode air?
So I went on during the summer. It aired in October. So I want to say a few months before it actually aired, because I believe I definitely went in on in the summertime. Oh, I went in July 10th and then it aired October 14th.
Did you have like a big family gathering where everybody got together to watch that episode with you on it?
No. And as a matter of, you know what's funny? You weren't really supposed to tell people, but they gave me postcards with Bob Barker's picture. So I did actually fill out the postcards and tell people. I was in a sorority, and some of my sorority sisters were making a huge deal about it. So we did watch it. We taped it on our VHS. My mom and dad taped it on the VHS. So we did get to watch it, yes.
Well, this all happened, as you mentioned, in 1996. And
that's right.
Man, what a great story to tell people. You were on The Price is Right, and not only on there, but won the showcase. But that's not the end of the story.
No, that's not.
In 2011, 15 years later, you decided to try it again. Why did you decide to go on the show a second time?
At this point, I'm married. I have 2 little ones. I have a 4-year-old, a 1-year-old. I'm a teacher, and things were just really rough at the time. I had a 3% pay cut at work. My car, I was driving this Toyota Corolla that every time I would drive on this bridge in the turn, it would shake. And this was an amazing car, but I had just put on way too many miles. On top of that, my brother was getting married in Punta Cana, and it just seemed like there was a lot that I needed money for. I wasn't going to get an extra job because I had my babies. And I don't know why it just came to me. One day I just told my husband at the time, I said, I'm going to The Price is Right to go win a car. I repeated the same thing to my brother. I'm going to go to The Price is Right and win a car and maybe a trip to Punta Cana to go to your wedding, right? And they laughed at me. My husband, he's my ex now, but at the time he was not very happy that I was leaving him for the day with the 2 girls. It was during my spring break time, but that's what I was doing. I said, I'm going to go to The Price is Right. I'm going to go win a car. And I went by myself.
When people think of, okay, I need extra money, what can I do? most people would never think, I'm going to go on a game show, because the chances of winning are so low anyway. But I just think it wouldn't occur to people, but you've already done it once, so why not do it again? Yeah, it kind of makes sense.
Right?
Now, at this time, Bob Barker, no longer the host, it was now Drew Carey. How was this experience different from the first one?
This experience was really emotional for me. I had a really tough time being away from my daughter. So again, it's a really long day. I mean, I had to park my car in the dark in the street and then run, to get in line. And so I'm alone this whole time. I met, again, another dad and a daughter, and we became friends. And I think at some point, even in line, I started to get emotional. Like, I can't believe I left my babies to, stand in line all day. And they said, oh, it's going to be worth it. You're going to get on. And sure enough, when the producer came around, I was sure to be really animated so I could get called up. But this time was actually a lot more difficult to get called up. I was not the first, the second, or third to be called up. I believe I was the fifth one to be called up. And then it took me a while to get on stage because people were bidding $1 over me. So the first thing I believe was a bicycle. Someone bid $1 over and they got on stage. The second one was espresso machine. I had no clue. That one, I take responsibility. The third one, again, someone bid $1 over me and they got on stage. And then the fourth thing I got to bid on was some luggage that I had no idea how much it was, but I was $100 off and no one bid $1 over me and I got on stage for that. So thank goodness.
So you must have felt pretty good about that. I mean, some things it's kind of crazy. You have no idea what they would cost, but luggage, what is it? A few $100, $500, $800. What, do you remember what you bid for that?
Yeah, I bid $920 and it was $1,020. I had no idea. I honestly had no idea how much that luggage would be because I would never spend that much on luggage. But I was really thinking, oh, I'm not going to make it. But in my mind, from the very beginning, I was just thinking, okay, first I need to get called down to the podium. And once I was in the podium, I thought, okay, now I need to get called on stage. So it was just that day, I just had a mission. And so thankfully I was called on stage. It was not looking good.
It's got to be disappointing for people to, like, maybe some of the early ones that were called and they're down there on contestant row the whole time and they never get up on stage.
You know what's worse about that? You can only be on The Price is Right once every 10 years. Now, when I was on it with Bob Barker, it was once in your lifetime. Once Drew came on, it's once every 10 years. But even if you get called up to the podium, that's considered being on The Price is Right.
Oh, so you've blown it just by getting up there.
Yes. Yeah, so that's rough.
So you got up on stage and you knew right off the bat, hey, the first game was for a Chevy Camaro.
Yes, it is for it.
You were thinking, okay, I came here for a car. There's my car.
Cherry red Chevy Camaro. Not a super kid-friendly car, but whatever. I'll take it. And my game this time was titled High-Low, and I had to pick 3 of the most expensive items. They had, I believe, 6 items, and I had to pick the 3 most expensive things. Now, I had just had a conversation with someone talking about how expensive tomato sauce was at my neighborhood store. So immediately I picked tomato sauce, and that turned out to be my blunder. I picked the gum. I forget what else it was that I picked, but I picked 2 of the most expensive items, but the tomato sauce was not one of them. I should have picked the cake decorating letters that I just remember getting as a kid is so cheap. My mom would have never spent that much on cake decorating letters, but
once again, you lose your main game.
Lost a second car.
Did you think, okay, well, I came for the car, there goes the car?
Mm-hmm. But again, now my mind is I have to win at the wheel.
And it's great to have that goal, but like you said before, it's just chance.
The wheel is entirely chance.
There's a little bit of strategy though, because when you first spin, you can decide whether to spin again or not.
I think so. That one is really, I feel, based on luck. So I have to spin first, and I spin 70 cents. And I decide not to spin again because I could easily go over. But 70 cents is beatable. But luckily, Eli spun. He spun 25 cents and then 5 cents. And then Colvin spins. He spins 55 cents and then 65. So one's not enough. One's too much. I get to go to the showcase again.
You're back.
Yes. Again as the loser, but I don't care. I am in the showcase. What I didn't mention about this episode, this was a very unique episode. This was a tribute to the Beatles, and the band from Vegas called Rain was there. So it was a very long episode because they were playing music. All of the prizes for the showcase were based around the Beatles. So what I was bidding on was a round trip to London, 6-night stay at a fancy hotel, a tour around London, a Mini Cooper, and I don't know how the video games connected, but there was a video game as well.
So there was a car in there.
There was a Mini Cooper in there. Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit more like a family car, right?
It was a 2-door Mini Cooper.
Oh, so it's not a family car.
That one was not.
How did you do in that showcase?
Well, I was up against Donald, and Donald had guitars and a Porsche.
Well, the Porsche would have been even less of a family car.
Right. Yes. So this time I was not as close. I bid $24,600. My actual price was $31,796. So I was off by a little more than $7,000. Now, Donald was off by a little more than $14,000. So,
oh, he was way off.
He was way off. Super nice guy. We were both saying, "Oh, we wish we could both win," because you get to talk to one another during the commercial breaks, and we were just saying, "Oh my goodness, one of us is going to win a car by the end of this." We were both very emotional. You could actually see me when I get called up on stage, when I win, you could see I'm very emotional the whole time. I wasn't as carefree as I was the first time. This time it was like I was on a mission to win a car, and I did it. I won the car.
Like you said, there's a big difference between being a college student. Yeah, let's just go do it, have fun. Maybe we'll win something. But now you really needed this.
I really needed the car. So the Price is Right came through for me for college. It came through for me with this car. So I didn't realize this, but when it was time for me to go to the dealership to pick up my car, it was the first year the Countryman was coming out. And the Countryman is a 4-seater. So I upgraded to that, and that was the car we had for several years.
So you had to just had to pay the difference?
That's right. That was it. And we took the babies to London, and we stayed in the hotel. It was wonderful. I still have the luggage also, although it is starting to fall apart a bit.
Well, yeah, this was 2011, so it's been
11 years. Yeah.
When you went on the trip to London, did they cover all of the expenses, or did you have to pay for your meals, or how much did you actually have out of pocket?
They'll only pay for what they say they're going to pay. So in this case, they paid for the 6-night stay and for the tour, but everything else was out of pocket. And of course, it was also for the 2 people round trip. So we had to pay extra for our daughter. So we did end up spending a lot of money. I went to win the car because I had no money, but I wasn't going to pass up this trip to London either.
Oh, of course.
No.
Yeah, when it's all covered, or most of it covered, airfare, and they paid for airfare, I assume.
They did. Yeah. I mean, my daughter turned 5 during the trip. We celebrated her 5th birthday there. So it's a great memory for her. She still remembers it, loves it.
So this is it's incredible. You went back and you won a showcase for the 2nd time.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
But you're on What Was That Like? This is a podcast where we talk about really unusual things, and that's not the end of the story. You were actually on The Price is Right again, a 3rd time this year, 2022.
I was, yes.
What was your reason for going back a 3rd time?
I figured it'd be much easier to get on because the audience is really minimized to, instead of 300 plus people, maybe 30 people, right? Because of COVID precautions, it's not a full audience. So they have people sitting in pods now, and it's just maybe 2 people to your group or maybe more, but you're separated 2 or 3 people per pod. I thought maybe it would really be easier to get on instead of standing in line for 5+ hours. So I sent in my information because I saw, if you want to be on The Price is Right, right in here. So I did, and immediately someone called me back. It was like a pre-screening. They said, okay, well, you sound like someone that we might want. So then I had an interview with another person, and it was actually a very lengthy interview. I want to say it was maybe 20 minutes long. And he wanted to see me as excited as I could be. It was not an easy interview.
Did you tell him, hey, wait a minute, don't you know who I am? I've been on this show twice before. Of course I'm a good contestant.
They don't have a clue.
You never played that card, huh?
No, I didn't. And you do have to be upfront with them, and you have to tell them that you've been on it before. So he knew, but nobody remembered me at all.
But if he knows you've been on before, especially the fact that you got up on stage both times and won, they must have some idea that you're kind of the type of person they're looking for. Right? That must have given you some kind of an edge.
It's possible. My brother and I spoke about it, and because by this time now, by the 3rd time now, it's a mission with my brothers. My brothers think it's just the coolest thing on earth. So we had conversations about it before COVID even hit, and we thought, gosh, do I tell them I've been on it? Or do I just not say anything? Because you do write it down, but at the time of being interviewed, you don't need to say it. So it could be, it could go either way depending on the person.
So, yeah, I saw the video of this, and at the beginning, the camera, it kind of pans across the crowd, and it's just like, it's not an empty room, but boy, it sure is a sparse, everybody's spread out. There's groups of 2 and 3 here and there.
Yeah, the odds are there for you. Instead of going up against 300 people, you're maybe going up against 15, really, because only 15, you have to go with somebody else. So again, I took my cousin John, my Price is Right wingman. Who else would I take, right? So really, 15 people have been interviewed to go. Now, those 15 people that have been interviewed, they said, this doesn't mean that you're going to get up on stage. Once I got to The Price is Right, again, you're interviewed again. So the interview process was a lot more rigorous this 3rd time.
Yeah, I would imagine, because they have a smaller group to choose from. They want to make sure they get the right people, the ones that are going to act like they're nuts when they get up on stage.
That's right.
And you did, right?
Yeah. I just feel if I'm going to drive, I'm going to wake up that early. I'm going to drive. I'm going to be waiting. I need to bring it. So again, when we're sat in a group and everyone's quiet and they talk to me, I just made sure to really bring out my dorkiest personality. You have to, channel that 9-year-old that would roll down the stairs kind of thing.
And are you still a teacher?
I am. Mm-hmm.
Okay. This show actually aired in February of 2022, and you had just taped that show in January. So you're still a teacher. Did you have to take time off work this time, or were you still on winter break?
I was on winter break, and because of everything that had gone on during COVID, that was another reason why I wanted to go on The Price is Right. At our school, we had lost an amazing teacher, and also one of my favorite students during the summer. My mom had lost her best friend. I just thought, gosh, I just want to go and bring something positive to our school, something we could laugh at, something refreshing. I think that also was what motivated me to go this time.
And what grade do you teach? How old are the kids?
At the time, I was teaching 4th grade. And a very special group because I had already taught them in 2nd grade. So they knew me very well.
Oh, yeah. Now, when they saw you, eventually when it aired,
mm-hmm.
were they surprised at how outgoing you were being, just jumping around and everything? Or had they ever seen you do that before for some other event at school?
They know I'm fairly silly, but I did give them a heads up. Although this third time, I knew that parents were going to be watching me, so I was very calm. But with my students and my principal, we actually watched, I think, my second appearance together. And I made flyers so that they could all watch me. And I made sure to give them a shout out at the wheel. I didn't even give my daughters a shout out. And this time was very different, actually, because you get to do a shout out when you're spinning the wheel. This time was very different because of COVID. They were playing music. It was loud. There was just a lot more going on.
Yeah, I saw the video of that, and I think Drew said, "Do you want to shout out anybody?" And it seems like you mentioned your students. Is that who it was?
Yes, I wanted to say how kind they were, because honestly, coming back to the classroom after COVID, a lot of the teachers had a really tough time with their classes, and my group was just such an amazing, kind, cool group. So it just was a great year. So I wanted to give them a shout out. And we have a way that we could message one another. And so a couple of them mentioned, "Thanks so much for giving us a shout out," or "I watched you. It was so fun to see you." I still hear from parents, "Oh my goodness, we watched you on The Price is Right." So I'm really glad that it was a positive for us, because we really needed something uplifting.
Yeah, definitely. That was a long 2 years, and everybody needs something to smile about, for sure.
Yeah.
When I fire up my podcast app and I look at the options for what to listen to, what I don't want is something normal and boring. I want something different, content that I just can't get anywhere else. And I know when I look at my phone and I see that there's a new episode from the Jordan Harbinger show, what I'm about to hear is going to be a conversation that's unusual and intriguing. That's exactly why I subscribe. I don't think any other podcaster has such a wide variety of guests. Everything from astronauts to authors to athletes, or maybe a scientist, or sometimes former major criminals. These are people that have had some experiences like you won't believe. And Jordan pulls some incredible stories out of them every time. One of the episodes was with Mimi Icon. She's one of those people who has the title of YouTube influencer. She talked about a lot of things, including how she stays sane while she's under the daily scrutiny of millions of people. And then there was Jordan's conversation with Matthew Schreier, an American photographer. He was captured by Al-Qaeda and held in a secret Syrian prison for 7 months before he escaped. And part of his survival was making his captors actually laugh. It's always something different and interesting, and it's never predictable. For some episode recommendations, check out jordanharbinger.com/start or search for The Jordan Harbinger Show. That's HARB as in boy, IN as in Nancy, GER on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And thanks to The Jordan Harbinger Show for sponsoring this episode.
This time again, I made it look so easy. I was the fourth one called down to the podium.
Oh, so you were right at the beginning of the show then.
Right at the beginning, and my cousin was sure that I was going to get called up. I wasn't. I had actually made a shirt this time that said something about, "Dear Drew, I'd like something new for 2022. I had never made a shirt before, so I was hoping that would help. Some Prada sunglasses came out for us to bid on. I had owned some Gucci sunglasses 10 years prior, before kids, and I had paid $350 for them, so I knew the Prada glasses were going to be at least $400 each. It didn't seem like anybody else realized how expensive they were.
And there were 4 of them, right?
There were 4 of them. Yeah, so I believe the gentleman that bid last bid something like 800 or so. I don't like to do the 801, but I was certain that it was over $1,000. I didn't want to get cocky, so I just said 850. And I knew that that would probably get me on stage. So I was the first one on stage again.
That had to be encouraging.
Yes, it was really great. And again, this time I'm having fun.
You're not desperate for a car this time.
I'd love it. At this point, I'm a single mom with 2 kids. So yeah, still, the money's always welcome with me.
But your first game, I mean, you were playing for another car.
I'm playing for another car, a Nissan Sentra. And I get to roll the dice. And let's say I roll a 5. I have to decide if the number is higher or lower.
All the digits in the car price. Yeah.
All the digits. They give you the first one, which is a 2. But I rolled pretty terrible numbers, a 5, a 4, a 5, a 2. I don't know. Maybe that 4 and the 2 were the worst. Again, I got all of the numbers right except for 1. And as soon as my brother saw it, he said, why would you bid? Why would you bid higher and go against the odds? But my brain just doesn't work that way. The numbers just kind of come to me. So on that 4, I said higher, but it was a 2. So I lost another game, lost another car.
So this is like this is the third car that you've played for and didn't win.
They're trying so hard to give me a car, and I just can't do it. And it's always by one number or one thing.
So you went to the spinning wheel and said hi to your students, and you won the spin again.
I won the spin. The 2 gentlemen that went before me, they had a tie. And again, it was super loud. I spun. It took me a minute to realize that I had won when I actually won.
So they were tied, and your spin was higher than theirs without going over $1.
That's right.
Man, you are a lucky spinner.
Yes, I am a lucky spinner. And that's when I thought, oh my goodness, I just did this a 3rd time. I could not believe it.
Getting to the showcase, and of course the first 2, you won the showcase. So what was your showcase? What were you bidding on?
This time, it wasn't as exciting. I got to tell you, the young lady that was the bigger winner, she and I had been chit-chatting, and she says, Fabiana, if a boat comes up, I am not bidding on a boat because I have no clue of how much a boat is. But it's a trip to Santa Barbara, 3-night stay with a limo ride. Let's see, what else was on there? Oh, a smartphone with a camera and a sailboat. As soon as I saw the sailboat, I knew I better start thinking about the price, because I had no idea how much a sailboat was.
And you knew she was going to pass that to you.
I knew it. She had already warned me that if a sailboat popped up, she was not going to bid on it. So this time, like never before, because it's such a small audience, now I could actually hear people. There was a contestant named Rocco. He was an older guy, and I had a feeling Rocco would know. So I'm not even looking at my cousin because I know he knows nothing about boats. And I'm pointing at Rocco, and I'm like, Rocco, how much is a boat? And I think Rocco said something around 25,000. They really prep you not to go over. So when you're going to the showcase, they say, guys, it's really lame when people go over. So really try not to go over.
So what they're saying, it just makes for bad TV because everybody's sad about it?
Right. If nobody wins, that's not fun, right? And that might be also why some people really underbid, because you don't want to ruin the show.
Right. I guess if both people go over, nobody wins anything.
Nobody wins.
That's kind of a downer way to end the show. I can understand
That's right.
that. Yeah.
So that, I think, gets into your mind, and you don't want to go over. Rocco says 25,000, so I'm thinking, okay, I'm trying to calculate everything. I believe I say 23,600, just a little bit under. And the actual price was actually above Rocco's, 28,800 something. So it was about a $5,000 difference. That was enough to win because the other contestant had gone way over, and she knew it. They even recorded her saying, "Oh, you got it."
I saw it when I watched the video. I saw her mouth the words to you. Oh, yeah, you got it. When they said what her price, how far off she was.
She knew she
messed up.
She did. So I could not believe it. John runs up to the stage. We hug each other. We're jumping up and down. And I could not wait to tell my brothers that I had won a third time. And my students, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't know about this, but I was just so excited that I'd be able to share this with them.
And what did you do with the boat this time?
This time was a little bit different. The dealer contacted me and he said, hey, you know what? You're going to have to pay this. You're going to have to try and sell it. Why not just sell it to me? And I know he probably made a lot of money off of it, but he's right. I am not a salesperson. So he just paid me for the boat. Probably what I would have made trying to sell it on my own.
Well, that's fair. And it saves you all the trouble.
It saves me all the trouble. So yeah, I did try to negotiate with him a little bit because I think he came out a little bit more on top. And, I know that I still have to pay taxes on everything, so it wouldn't just be all a profit. So that's what happened at the boat. I took the Santa Barbara trip. Oh, it came with a wine tasting tour. That was wonderful.
A trip like that, of course, the second one, you were off to London, but Santa Barbara is only about 3 hours or so from where you live.
Right.
But
right.
It was still a trip. It's time to,
It was still a trip. I don't leave often. I don't go on trips often. So that was a nice, perfect little trip for me. And boy, do they have really great food in Santa Barbara. So it was very nice. Nothing like the London trip, of course, but I think it's what was right for me for this time.
It probably cost you less money out of pocket than the London trip, though.
Yes, for sure.
Of course.
Yes.
It's just unbelievable. 3 appearances, 3 showcase wins. It's just crazy. When you enter some kind of contest, like a raffle or a drawing or something like that, do you expect to win? I mean, do you normally win these things?
I don't. I really don't. I always say I won the lottery when it comes to my family because I have the best, I just have the most amazing humans around me, even at work. In that case, I feel like I'm a very lucky person. But as far as raffles and those things go, no, I'm not. And everyone tells me this is my luckiest year, right? This year I won The Price is Right. I was Teacher of the Year at school. I see this as a plus, but I actually almost died this year. I had an anaphylactic shock hiking down a mountain, and the doctor said, yeah, you could have died. So this was a very lucky year for me. So I've been buying lottery tickets more than ever. I don't even get one number.
Yeah, but the odds of winning Price is Right are a lot better than winning a lottery.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I guess lucky just in life in other ways. I think no more than most people, I guess. I don't know.
Are there any plans for a 4th appearance on The Price is Right?
Well, that would be really, really silly not to, right? You have to expect me to try again.
Of course. But when are you able to go back? Do they limit, didn't you say it was 10 years?
10 years. So yeah, we'll have to wait patiently for 10 years and then I'll have to try again. And hopefully they don't have a picture of me with an X over it. But I would love to go again. I just love everything about it. If I didn't have to have, my teacher job, I'd love to work there. I love the energy. It's great. It's a great atmosphere. And I got to say, I did mention that the first time that I went, the guy was really grumpy and getting us through our forms. This time there's a nice room. You sit in chairs and there's a couple ladies that really go through the paperwork and explain everything so nicely. So that really changed from the first time to the third time. They actually, during the show, they offer you, there's a snack bar on, backstage. They offer you water. So it's so different now than it was at the beginning. And just everyone was so nice and just a great place to be, I think.
10 years from now, we're going to be looking for you. Maybe you'll come back on the podcast and tell about how it went.
I'm going to come back on the podcast and tell you how I did on The Amazing Race, I think.
Oh, yeah, that'd be fun too. You heard Fabiana talk about this one man who was really obsessed with The Price is Right, and more particularly the actual prices of all the prizes. I mean, he tracked the data by watching and documenting each episode of the show, kept it all in a spreadsheet, and he had most of the prices memorized. And he would go to the show and be in the audience calling out the price to whoever was on stage trying to win something. There was a whole documentary done about this guy, and I watched it a while back, and it's really interesting. I'll link to that in the show notes. And if you have a question for Fabiana that I didn't ask, she's also in the podcast Facebook group. You can discuss this episode with her and the other listeners by joining at whatwasthatlike.com/Facebook. Now, a couple of things before we get to this week's listener story. First is a call out to a listener, Courtney. Hey, Courtney, you sent in a story about your dad and also something that happened to your fiance. But the email address you included must have had a typo because it bounced back to me with an error. So please message me again so that we can connect. And the other thing I want to tell you is that every episode of What Was That Like has now been transcribed. This was a really big project that took most of this year to complete. I've had some other podcasters ask me, why are you spending all that money for transcribing? And that's a fair question. It was several $1,000s because I hired a couple of actual humans to do the work in order to increase accuracy. And one of them is doing the transcriptions for all of the episodes going forward. I wanted to do this because some people just prefer to read rather than listen to audio. But more importantly, there are people who love these kind of stories, but they have hearing impairment, or they might be completely deaf. This is kind of personal with me because I myself have some hearing loss, and I don't want to exclude anyone from being able to enjoy the stories that we do here, so I decided it was worth it. And having said that, I have an offer for you. For anyone who wants to, you can go to the show notes page for each of the 118 episodes, and you can see the full transcript of that episode there. But if you would like to have your own copy of every transcript of every one of those 118 episodes, including this one, all in one place, I've done that work for you. And you can get that on the website as an ebook for just $10. That's at whatwasthatlike.com/transcripts. This is a digital download in PDF format, and it's almost 2,000 pages. Eventually, I'll be dividing it up and having a separate ebook of transcripts for each year. But until that happens, you can get all of them in one ebook for $10, and you'll also be helping to offset the cost of that project, which I really appreciate. So if you'd like to get a copy for yourself while this is available, go to whatwasthatlike.com/transcripts. And here we are at this week's listener story. Every episode ends with a listener story, so if you have something that you can tell in about 5 minutes, record it on your phone and send it to me at scott@whatwasthatlike.com, and you just might hear your story in a future episode. The story you're about to hear is from a listener whose wedding anniversary is the same as mine, July 7. Stay safe, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
My name is Carolyn. I was listening to podcast number 110, Jen is a Professional Bridesmaid, which was really a fun listen. It goes to show that there's a niche for everyone. Then my attention was drawn to the listener story at the end of the podcast, which was about Scott's own wedding. You see, my husband and I share the same anniversary date, July 7th. It brought up some memories for sure. We were married by the Justice of the Peace in Maine on July 7, 1977, which makes our anniversary date very easy to remember, 7777. The truth is, we really didn't pick that date. We had arrived in Maine on a vacation in early July, and at that point we had been together for 2 years, and we had been talking about getting married. So we thought, wouldn't it be great to get married in the quaint, beautiful town of Bar Harbor, Maine? So we went to the town hall to get our license and figured we'd get married that day. It was July 6th. However, Maine has this quirky law that a couple must wait a day after getting a license to actually get married. I guess it gives couples a chance to change their minds. So the next day was July 7th, and obviously we didn't change our minds. We did get married. But that wasn't the end of the story. On the way back home, we stopped by my new in-laws' cottage in New Hampshire, and out of the blue, my husband's father blurted out, "Isn't it about time you two got married?" My poor husband, taken off guard, stammered, yeah, that's a good idea. So right off the bat began the family's plans for a wedding. We didn't have the heart to tell them that we were already married. They wanted a full church wedding and all that goes with it. One problem was I didn't have a family, so I grew up in foster homes and there was no one to help me. I was on my own. I had to make decisions the best I could and be my own support system. And I knew nothing about the protocol of planning a wedding. Also, we didn't have much money and I had school loans to pay off. So finally, I spoke up and insisted on a simple wedding. I found a pretty dress off the rack and the reception was in my husband's family's backyard. Fortunately, the wedding went well and his family was happy and we were happy, and it cost us only $2,500. So that wedding date is September 3rd, 1977, 2 months from our first marriage date. I can't believe that it actually took us only 2 months to plan this wedding. Anyway, we have 2 marriage certificates and 2 dates. Later, we heard through the grapevine that there were some who thought our marriage would never last, probably because I'm 13 years older than my husband. But they were wrong, of course, and here it is 45 years later, and our marriage is still alive and well and going strong. We are truly suited for each other, and what we do know for sure is that we have each other and a soft place to land when things get tough. It's been a wild 45-year adventure, and I say good luck to all those who are planning a wedding. I know for sure that plans don't always go as plans, so be flexible and accept a change of plans and go with the flow.